Welcome to the Secure CIO, the podcast for technology executives who are tasked with hiring and retaining great cybersecurity leaders. Join best-selling author Claire Pales together with industry thought leaders as they answer your questions about sourcing the right leaders, building cybersecurity teams, candidate selection, salaries, skills, and more.
Hello and welcome to the Secure CIO podcast. I'm Claire Pales and today's guest is Joe McCatty. Joe is a senior leader with over 18 years experience, having worked across different sectors in the UK, Europe and APAC markets with a key interest in success, as well as offering support and mentorship to both internal and external professionals on key things to focus on in their profession. Passion in leading others, working on complex projects, passion about talent, candidate engagement and management, acquisition, as well as coaching are just a few things that Joe enjoys. Currently working on site with ANZ in their niche squad to attract engineering talent into the business during an exciting time of change in the world of technology. Joe is a leader and sourcing strategist. She's adaptable, innovative, flexible, a working mum and a mindset coach and living with purpose. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Really pleased to be here, Claire.
So we've heard a little bit about you in your bio that I just read, but tell me a bit about how you got to this point in your career as a leader in strategic sourcing and what led you from applied chemistry to helping big corporates find the right talent?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. So I was a scientist by background. I still classify myself as a scientist, but I took a career detour, I call it, back in 2001 when I decided to move to London, wanting to join a pharmaceutical industry. That was the plan. To cut a long story short, I was sold the dream and I took it. So from an R&D scientist, I classify myself now as a people scientist. So I've had a bit of a 360-degree recruitment journey. So it's been, from temporary recruitment to permanent and then all to do with selling scientist to scientist. Quite exciting for the organizations in the UK. And then from there, it sort of went on to more senior leadership roles, hit a glass ceiling, switched to exec search, worked my way up from researcher, senior researcher to head of research. And then I took the plunge and joined the dark side, which was internal talent acquisition. And from there, I guess the love of working with internal recruitment teams and coming up with different approaches to attracting talent really emerged. And so it kind of got me to here, back in Melbourne, where I'm working at ANZ, consulting through a firm, offering different approaches to candidate sourcing. Yeah, so that's in a nutshell.
Right. I mean, when we met, you were doing some big hiring in the cybersecurity field, which is obviously my topic of passion, and you were looking at 50 roles across the globe. What were some of the challenges you experienced hiring staff into cyber and some of the risk and governance roles as well?
I could sit here talking to you for the next hour about the challenges, but I'm going to keep it short and punchy and give you the key takeaways from that time. So the number one key thing is the hiring managers knowing what they actually want. So dream criteria versus what's actually out there in the marketplace. The other challenge is, working on so many roles and they're all a priority to be hired into the business. So it's working with the business to help them understand, okay, let's work on the key roles and the leadership positions who then can in turn help you recruit for the rest of what you need. And the other factor is the project coordination and management between the different stakeholders in the different global locations. So they're the three key takeaways, I'd say, into some of the challenges that we experienced during that time. It's, hindsight's a powerful thing.
And what did you do to overcome some of those challenges?
Stepped in and offered the project coordination piece, really sat down with the hiring managers to understand what is it that they're looking for, essential criteria, and then coming back with, well, actually, here are some market insights. This is where I think we should be trying to source the talent, and they're 70, 80% of what you want, and the rest you probably need to develop. From that perspective, it was really stepping in and taking it on like a project and getting the business, not just the said hiring managers, but who else in the business can assist with meeting with the candidates and doing the interviews and helping to select and making sure everyone's aligned in what they're actually looking for.
I think that is, from where I sit, that's absolutely a huge part of the challenge is that real purpose around what is the role there for and how will filling that role add value to the business?
Absolutely. Because the other key thing is some of these organizations at the time, may be doing revolutionary things. Like, at the time, the client that I was working with, they're working on new technologies. They haven't even thought about or hadn't thought about at the time the security part or cybersecurity part of the new technology they'd be using and the impacts that they can have. And so going out there and expecting it to already exist in the marketplace was also a key consideration. It's understanding what are the transferable skills that we can adopt from other industry sectors as well. So, a lot to think about.
As someone who's not from a cybersecurity background, what can recruiters do to ensure that they're equipped to fill cybersecurity roles? What could the hiring manager do to support a successful recruitment process with a recruiter who hasn't got that background in the subject matter expertise?
The process itself, recruiters are usually well averse to offering support, right, for the hiring manager to make sure that they are selecting the right talent. So not having a cybersecurity background, it's all to do with, once again, really understanding what does a hiring manager actually need, doing some market research, gathering information, but then the hiring manager themselves are usually the ones with the technical competency. And so when you're getting candidates coming through, so, you may be engaging with candidates, tapping them on the shoulder, saying, hello, come and join us, as opposed to just advertising roles. That's how it usually would happen in cybersecurity. So using your network, having lots of conversations, and then going to the hiring manager and saying, well, this is what the market is suggesting. These are some of the candidates that we can, have as part of the process, and really meeting the candidates. So they would assess the technical element, and usually it's the recruiter that would assess and assist with the soft skills part. So that's the partnership, I think, that would allow for a successful hire.
Just picking up on something that you just said, do you think that some organisations are more challenging to hire into than others? So obviously you've got the hiring manager, you've got a brand behind you. Are some organisations more challenging to sort of pitch out to the market, or some industries as opposed to others?
Yes, it all depends on what is that company focused on at the moment. Are they going through a change? Are they about to go through a change? What's the value proposition of joining the organization? Are they a small organization? Even if they are small, do they have a career pathway versus, a large organization? Because that's what people think, right? Join a large organization, you have a career for life, and you can have many iterations to your career within the business. So there's some of the things to really consider, when trying to attract talent. It all comes back to, it might be a great brand or it might not be. How are you selling the proposition? Can that person come in and be set up for success with the team and the culture? Can they also have a career pathway within the organization? So I think it comes down to the process that the candidate goes through. And then when they are deciding on making a move and a big change in their lives, because that's what happens when you do change jobs, it impacts your life. What consideration? Usually it's what can I see myself doing here? Am I set up for success? Can I have a future? Is the team awesome to work with? So I think there's some of the challenges that organizations will face if they don't sell the dream and they hand on heart don't have a career proposition for candidates, then usually they wouldn't join.
And speaking about career pathways, there's a lot of press at the moment about the cybersecurity industry experiencing a skills crisis. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on this in general terms. Obviously, cybersecurity specifically, if you have an opinion, but in general terms, do industries experience a skills crisis or a skills gap, or are we just looking in the wrong places for the right candidates?
I think it might be a combination of both, but the skills crisis comes about because everyone's trying to hire the same thing at the same time. And that's why there's a shortage, so that it becomes a bit of I hate to use the word talent or war, I should say. I don't like using the word war, but it does become a talent war where candidates are at the forefront and they could decide which way do I go, because there are so many opportunities they can consider. And then the other piece is, all right, if we've got that situation happening, then what can we do creatively? What other industries, what other locations can we attract this talent? So it's coming up with a different approach, not always looking in the same places, or looking at skill sets that can be transferred, or looking at candidates that are 80% there and the 20% you can develop.
I think it's a good sort of segue into talking to you a little bit about diversity and people who come from different industries and have different thought processes, and diversity in that sense, as well as gender and career and background and culture. What sort of role does diversity play in your hiring or sourcing plans, and how does it play a part in outcomes for you?
So it comes down to what is the company culture, and then it gets nutted down to what is the team culture. And then it's the consideration of, okay, the team culture as it is right now, what are they aspiring to be moving forward? Looking at, is there enough diversity in thought? And that could come through gender or background or skill set. So when I think diversity, it could come in many shapes and sizes. But it's a consideration only when you focus on the specific team, and then the overall culture within the organization, and then what are the needs, and looking at the overarching strategy. I know the said organization that I work for, they had a gender diversity, I hate to use the word target, but they had an aim and an ambition to have more gender diversity within the team, because historically engineering or STEM related degrees, more male versus female, and hopefully that'll change as time progresses. But that's unfortunately the reality, that even though we might want to have a balance, it's really hard to hire when they just don't exist right now. So yeah, many considerations. So it really depends on team culture, company culture. What are the hiring needs? What are they aspiring to do moving forward? Is there an overarching strategy within the business to have more diversity?
And in terms of looking at demographics, and particularly in some of the work you've done in security, have you noticed that, you might get a whole bunch of candidates who have a computer engineering degree, for example? Are there any other attributes or skills or contributing factors that you've seen in the styles of leader that make for a good security leader?
Yes, I think it's having the hybrid technical guru as well as people leader. And what I mean by that is having someone who has that approach to being able to mentor and support and guide and coach their teams on the projects or initiatives that they're having to work on through the technical lens. So not only do they have to have the leadership capability, but that they have to have the technical nous. So that's that hybrid combination. I think that would set up the person and then team and then organization for success.
You mentioned the word mentor in there, and I noticed that recently you were blogging about mentors, and how from where you sit in your role in the industry, you like to offer insights and expertise, but you also think that you need your own coaches and mentors and inspiring leaders for yourself. What role do you think mentors and coaches play in the sourcing process, both for candidates and hiring managers, but also for recruiters?
I think it's quite huge and it's instrumental. The coaching piece is significant. So the first thing I will say is I think I'll probably have a coach for life, because you can always step up, level up, improve. And as humans, we are creatures of wanting to do that. There's the growth piece. We're always wanting to achieve more. That's going to be embedded in every individual by default. And then I guess the second piece is, having that approach, working with a team and an organization, it gives insights into, okay, so you're not just doing a job, you actually have a purpose, and we acknowledge that. And then when it comes to attracting talent, it's understanding the cultural piece on, is that candidate coachable, or are they set in their way? So I think, having all those combinations, it's definitely a high consideration when you're trying to attract talent into any business, because you have some people that are set in their ways and they don't want to change. And unfortunately, there's always going to be change in any industry, any sector. It's the nature of things, always wanting to continuously improve and, do that in accordance to the market needs. So yeah, I think it's quite a huge factor.
Yeah, and I think too that the opportunity for mentors, not through your own boss, but also throughout the rest of the organisation. I think your mention around is the person coachable, but also what's the culture of the business for
Yes.
that sort of growth and improvement. It does make a huge difference.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the organisations I worked with, a big multinational in the UK, they had an internal coaching, I guess, service, if you like. And what they would do is they would put it out there and ask the business whether it's, a person working in manufacturing or a person working in IT, you know, if they wanted to coach and mentor others, they would usually partner them with someone in a completely different area of the business. And so it's somewhere that where they can vent, but also somewhere where they can, really look at some of the considerations for the challenges that they're facing, like in different approaches and encouraging. So I think having a coach can come in many forms, whether within the business or whether within your own network or whether you actually sign up for a coach. I think it's quite important to have one for sure.
The recruitment industry often gets a bad rap. I would probably say too regularly at times. I think recruiters do a great job with the resources available to them. And I guess there's some myths that I'd be quite keen for you to bust today if you've got some, to help listeners to understand, what's reality and what is really a myth.
So I think historically the recruitment sector, it did start off with recruitment firms really doing the sell to organizations and just candidate marketing CVs to get, as many people, into the business and makes as much money as possible. So all commission based. And that's unfortunately where the myth has come from, where recruitment is associated with commission. So you don't really care about the people. You just want to get your money. And, maybe that's partly true, but I think it's a bit harsh now, and time has progressed and we've got, a recruitment sector. It's no longer just, oh yeah, recruiters, yeah, we use them as and when required and they're really good, because they can get people in quickly when we need them because we haven't worked on our workforce plan and we need someone tomorrow. So I think I think recruiters are needed, whether it's recruiter in an exec search firm or it's a recruiter in an agency that offer temporary staff or permanent staff, or if it's an internal recruiter. I think they each play a role. I think also the myth associated with, okay, I'm an internal recruiter and I'm not going to use an agency because they're competing with me and I'm trying to save money for the business. I think there is some truth to that. There are some businesses that do want to decrease the amount of agency use, but we're still going to need all different types of recruitment service, whether it's exec search agency or internal. So I think it's just getting that understanding that we're all in the same sector, we're just offering a different service, whether it's direct to client or internally to your client. So the myth about being a cowboy trying to make money, yeah, I think that's gone by the wayside in my eyes anyway.
Yeah. Thinking about recruiting for teams, what have been some of your key lessons learned in building a team out as opposed to just bringing in one individual?
Huge consideration when you're doing multi-hiring for a specific team and then the broader domain, if you like, within the business. You're not just hiring for the technical skills, it's the cultural fit. And then you have to consider, okay, that talent that I'm bringing in, these new people that we're trying to source for, how are they going to fit in with the new people we're recruiting as well as the current team? So I think huge consideration is looking at development areas and strengths for every individual that you're bringing into the business versus what already exists in the business, and having that cohesive approach of working together for the same mission. And everyone has different ambitions, different goals, different timelines to reach that. So it's really the leader and also the individual being accountable to allow that to happen, allowing people to flourish, allowing them to be set up for success. You might have people who are introverts and rather just get on with it, but actually they want a career pathway, but they don't know how to voice it. Then you have your extroverts who are always the ones coming up with the ideas, and don't really give anyone else a chance to say anything. So it's looking at the team dynamic and making sure you're hiring to complement that.
And do you find then that trying to bring in a leader, I guess at what time would be the best time to bring a leader in when you're trying to build a team? Would you bring them in at the start, Or would you look at how the team dynamic begins and then bring a leader in that would match with that or complement that?
It really depends on have you got a leader in the business, because there are some cases where you don't have the leader in and the team does exist and they're awesome. But the ideal world would be to hire the leader first and then they build out the team according to the business needs and the culture they're trying to create. But if the team already exists, absolutely the leader needs to complement that team. So it might be a team that love motivation and love support and love being told what they need to do. So a leader needs to complement that. It does depend on where are they in the hiring process. Is it a new role? Is it a replacement role? Does a team exist? Does it not exist? But if you could, hire the leader first, definitely.
Okay. So would you say that there's anything that you know now about recruitment, either in cybersecurity or recruitment in general, that you wish you had have known when you first started out?
Yes. Way back when, when you're dealing with stakeholders, whether you're an agency offering a service or you're internal, it's not rushing with the haste of the business to hire the talent. It's making sure that they are completely accountable for that hire, because what we often find is hiring managers or stakeholders are too busy, working on their strategies, or they're, attending all these leadership meetings and there's critical things that they need to focus on. And then they need all this talent. And instead of prioritizing bringing in the right talent to support them, they go with haste and they might go to an agency or an exec search firm and not take the time to hire. So I think it's making sure that whatever you're doing, whether you're an exec search professional, recruiter on site, or at an agency, it's making sure your hiring manager is accountable and taking time to hire the right talent. I think, I use that mantra now, but when I first started out in recruitment, if I knew that, it'd be so much better. So yeah, that's the key thing for me.
Yeah, because I think when someone else is in a hurry, you tend to sort of get on their moving bus and forget
exactly right.
that you can slow down the process if that's what's needed. And if that time is needed to do some hard thinking around why you're hiring, then there's absolute value in making that recommendation. So I think that's a great reflection and good self-awareness for your career now.
Agreed. And, if a hiring manager can't tell you and write down what it is that they're looking for, then they clearly don't need it. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, exactly. We're aligned.
Jo, how can people find more out about your work or find you or work with you? What's the best places where you hang out?
Meetups. I think they're an essential part of development and, to keep interests going. So I recommend that anyone that hasn't signed up to, meetups should really look into it, because there are some really interesting meetings that happen, and whether it's organizations that set them up or individuals that do it, I think it's fun to learn something new and to develop and just acquire more skills, whether it's, a new area, a new consideration in terms of how to hire, or, technology, artificial intelligence, whatever it may be. So for me, I think networking is a key element to what I do. And with that, I have set up a career coaching meetup, if you like. So, to meet face-to-face, you could do that, or individually. The kind of platforms that I think are essential that I use for me are Instagram and LinkedIn. There are other social platforms. I mean, Twitter's a big one, but where I spend most time is LinkedIn and Insta.
Yep.
So that's where you'll find me.
Great. Well, I can put your Instagram handle and your LinkedIn details into the show notes, and which will have all the details about Jo's background and details of the chat today. So thank you so much, Jo. It's been a really good conversation, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Excellent. I've really enjoyed our chat, Claire. Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Cheers. That's all we have time for today. Thanks so much for listening. For more information on all our guests, check out the show notes at thesecurecio.com, where you can also find more information on the Secure CIO framework and sign up for my newsletter. If you loved the show, please subscribe to the podcast and feel free to leave me a 5-star rating. I'll see you next week.